Hi guys, good morning. How are you doing? So, breakfast with a dog trainer, and this is Roman with Holistic Dog Training. And today we're gonna answer all the questions you have. While having coffee and kind of casual a little bit. So, I'm Roman with Holistic Dog Training, and most of you guys know me already in person. But here I am. This is real. It's me, kind of like honk honk. So, what are you guys struggling this week with your dogs? Um, Ask your question. So here's what you can do. You can type your questions below. Um, don't forget to add your dog's gender, age, and breed. So it will help me kind of give you a more precise answer. Um, take your time, describe exactly the situation you have. Don't You can post a picture I may be seeing here. If you are not in the group, which I broadcast this video, please join the group. I'll see you here. I have it right here. If you show up, I'm going to invite you in. So let me know what you guys struggling with. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how your week went so far. What have you tried? What didn't work out for you? No offense, I will not judge you. It's not a judging session. It's basically about what you need help with. So if you have any question, type it in. Don't forget gender, age, and breed of your dog, so I get a better overview. So welcome to my breakfast. So meanwhile, I'm gonna see your comments coming in. So how do you guys do with the restrictions? Does your dog shows anxiety issues? Does your dog show suddenly new behaviors that he hasn't shown before? Do you recognize any changes lately? Have you had to switch your dog's food and you see there is an issue coming up? He doesn't like the food, he avoids the food, or in any way other than pooping, diarrhea because of your food switch. Meanwhile, I will just give you a heads up. I know many struggle financially, and I know many colleagues struggle financially right now because it is difficult for everyone, no exceptions. There is a lot of stress involved. I'm affected by the stress. I have ADD, and all these changes that are coming are very intense in different levels. So, for example, I just moved from Phoenix to Oregon, and even though I'm full time online since 2009, I have done a lot of changes through that time since 2009. I changed locations 3 times, 4 times now, and I changed my business structure a couple of times, still online, but more and more in that aspect. So what I see here is it's a lot of frustration and a lot of um, stress because as I start establishing myself here locally, I see all of a sudden everything's went to hold, and I am in survival mode, and you are in survival mode, and your dogs are in survival mode. So while you guys typing and you share your questions, I have something I want to share with you and see if you resonate with that. I want to talk about a little bit about survival response. So if we look a little bit deeper into a survival response, it really functions the same way it functions with people. So here, for example, I did this infograph, and let me know if you like it, maybe in the comment, how you feel about that. Usually we talk about two survival responses, fight and flight. And then we have an in-between situation where we have freeze. But then I want you to think about how do we respond into these situations. Usually what we do is if we're in a stress situation just like now, we feel like, oh, we have to get upset. We are aggressive on Facebook posts. We are reactive to our neighbor. If the dogs make a mistake, we get upset. And then we have our flight response, which is, it kicks in with me. For example, I get super tired, I get super frustrated sometimes, and then okay. So we have already a question. Let me put that question up here, and then all of a sudden, I feel like I'm out of control, and sleeping longer. My body tries to stay out of that stress. Now, some people get frozen. We have people have panic attacks. They get anxiety issues because they cannot stay away from it, and at the same time they cannot fight with it. So the other thing that you look for is, how is it possible for us to cope with this situation? So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So for now, we have a Facebook user. I don't see the name. So if you guys want to comment, maybe you want to give permission Facebook to give you that ability to put the names on it. So the question is, Pyrenees Border Collie mix, 14 months old. He's fixed male, mouthing when brushing and talking out. Okay, it's taking his fur. Or applying cream on a wound. On hard mouthing, is it kind of play mouthing? Any suggestions? That's a good question. So let me answer you that question for a moment. So when we're talking about reactivity, which is that happens, your dog shows behaviors for two main reasons: either to avoid the situation or to gain more of that situation. So obviously your dog feels discomfort, and when you try to brush him, your dog is turning his head, wants to snap at you, and eventually stopping from doing that by mouthing you. That happens because every attempt that your dog showed before that did not work well. So he escalates to the next level. Turning his head didn't work, growling at you didn't work, and now he's being mouthy with you, and that didn't work. And then all of a sudden he starts biting you because that actually stops from happening. So at the same time, while you try to do your work, your dog sees that all these attempts with different versions didn't work. So he escalates his response, and from a calming message sends you over into a reactivity, and then all of a sudden it turns into aggression. Now, why does the dog show this behavior? It's not the brushing, it's the sensation that your dog feels while you're brushing your dog. So when you go with the brush and go through it and you pull his hair out of his skin, it really hurts. So we need to recognize the dog's skin is more sensitive than us humans. While we have, like, I feel we have 5 to 13 layers of skin layers between our surface and the underlying nervous system where the sensory is set. Dog's skin is much thinner in that aspect. A dog can feel a fly sitting on his coat. You don't feel the fly sitting on your hair. So we see how sensitive dogs are. Now, some dogs are even higher sensitive because of allergic reactions. And so that comes into consideration. And so if you brush your dog and he feels that sensation, he will respond to that. So one thing that I suggest you to do is question, is it necessary to do it right that moment when your dog is already aggravated, just went outside, he's a little bit stressed, he comes back in the house, you come up with a brush and you actually show your dog what your intentions are. At the same time, you showed your dog that you don't care about his body language. So therefore, no matter how he explains to you that he doesn't like it, you can still follow through. So that's right there is already a problem. So we have emotional threshold. Let me pull up a picture here that I have for you, by the way. Oops, that's the wrong picture. Oops, ignore. Take this one. So let me get rid of this one. So these are thresholds. So we have the stressor. In that case, it's not a cat, it's a brush, okay? So we have under threshold, at threshold, and over threshold. And maybe you want to see those bars that are visible there, these black frame bars. So your dog is under threshold. You guys just come back from work. Everything is happy. All of a sudden, you see your dog has something in his coat. And now what you're going to do is you grab your brush. That puts your dog exactly to that black frame yellow line that the dog is at threshold. Now your dog gives you clear signals. how he feels about it. And what's going to happen next, it depends on you. If your dog gets at threshold and starts showing tense, shows signs of insecurity and concerns, which your dog turns around, he freezes, okay? And then you eventually have your dog bite at the collar, which is even worse. And then all of a sudden you continue doing that, your dog goes at over threshold, which is that black line with a black framed line. Now your dog starts being reactive. He shows signs of fear and aggression, will be in fight, freeze, or flight mode. Okay, now let's go back to the previous screen that I showed you before, because these two things are associated with each other. Okay, let me get rid of the banner so you guys, okay, so if you see in the fight response, this is active stress and active fear state. The dog may become aggressive to make the threat go away in that situation. So you have a response, a survival response. It's not the dog's conscious thinking, it's his body responding to the situation. So instead of your dog being able to walk away because he's confined, he has no other way until he goes to fight mode. So my goal here is for you to be conscious and start conditioning your dog to start tolerating these things. But also you have to be very careful the way you present the whole thing. So you cannot just go with it. You cannot just grab the dog by the collar and start brushing him no matter what. Teach him that you respect his worries, but you know what? Hey, that brush gives you some rewards. You want those rewards? But at the same time, to get those rewards, I may need to brush you. Is it okay with you to be brushed? Okay, are you fine with it? I may have a video somewhere. Unfortunately, I don't have it right now, but maybe one of the next time when we talk about trauma, I can show you a video that I did with my dog, with T-Bone, who was extremely aggressive and fear aggressive when he was seeing the brush, because he didn't recognize the brush. He recognized something in my hand that is a threat. So just my body language caused the dog to be in a survival mode, and in that for survival mode, the dog can go basically to anything. So I know this is a tricky situations, and sometimes we need to be very careful the way we handle things, but I highly recommend you. We can basically sit down and talk about that. I have a system we can do online training, and I can help you with that. It's super simple. It looks pretty much like that. So you and me are sitting on this real time session, and that will be me on the corner down, like without beard. And I can see you in real time doing what you do, and we can walk through the process and see if you guys struggle with any particular, your body language, your gestures. I can help you identify your dog's body language in real time, right as it happens. So I hope that answers your question. So to summing up, you want to give your dog um, the sensation of reward. I give you a treat. In exchange, we're going to brush a little bit, okay? We can brush as we walk. Like take your dog for a walk on a leash, and as you guys walk, which is a happy event, you can brush him a little bit at a time, okay? Maybe 1 or 2 brushes, give him another treat, maybe 3 or 4 brushes, give him another treat, give him continuous treats as you continue brushing. You can use a hot dog. I would also be careful, because some dogs in this fight survival mode may eventually snap, so you want to be careful. If your dog gets mouthy or too mouthy with your hands, you want to numb it down a little bit. Less stimulus on his skin, more rewards in that case. So thank you for your question. I hope that answered your question. So we have another question. That's a long one. Let me get this here. My dog is retired. He wants to work. He lives with a veterinarian. We moved to a similar house, and the retired veterinarian, or maybe it should be veteran, is blind. My dog wants to work harder since he's feeling better. The veterinarian, able to see him, is frustrated because the old dog is trying harder to find a job. The old dog is stone deaf, and the veterinarian is blind. The dog needs to be there for an opportunity to work. Clashes with the veterinarian, who is always falling over him, who can't see him. Okay, let's open up a little bit more. Okay, this is all much as I can see. You're welcome, Vicky. So let's look at that a little bit. So he lives with a veterinarian. He moved in a smaller house, and the veterinarian is blind, and the dog is deaf. Oh no, your dog is tired, but the dog is not deaf. Okay. Um, so I feel the one thing we have to do is to be aware that the dog has to give space for the veterinarian who is blind. And so the dog needs to learn that stay away from the path. And there are a lot of changes coming in that case, because I feel, a dog is structured in a routine. The veterinarian doesn't have a clear job description. So I think both need help here. Both need to start establishing a routine. Maybe help put them. Oh, the dog is deaf. Okay, thank you. So we need to become aware that the dog wants to have a job description, but in his job description, there is no clear identification what to do with a person who is deaf, because your dog looks for signals, okay? And the person doesn't see where the dog is to give him appropriate signals. So eventually, that will be a good way um, to work with teaching both the veterinarian how to handle a dog who wants a job description, and how to handle the person's in between stage where the dog has to learn the new environment that is smaller and different than the previous one, um, and the veterinarian who is unable to see the new situation because basically the new environment is for him difficult to adjust. So he has to worry about picturing in his mind where he has to guide and going through. Usually people just use a stick in public, but in the house, they just have, they know 3 steps forward and 1 step left. That's where we're being the kitchen. And then 5 steps forward and 3 steps right will be the bathroom. So the dog needs to learn when the person is in move, he has to stay away from his legs. So I think that's something you may eventually help the veterinarian transmit that information to start rewarding. Thank you. My wife is just awesome. She sees me, I have a training session with you guys having a coffee. And she's like, honey, do you have enough coffee? Yeah, I'm up to date here. Thank you. I love your questions, guys. Super. I love your questions, because many people struggle with this, with handicapped dogs. Many people have a problem reaching out to um, a trainer right now because all these restrictions. So online sessions would be a great way to work. And I know people who are blind don't see the training sessions, but you can still walk the person theoretically, audio through audio. And if it's possible, most of the people have smartphones, and you can use a smartphone for you as a trainer to observe the situation as it happens, or have a second person coming to that house. And so you will have a visual what's happening in real time and help the person going through. So if you need that help as a trainer, as a professional, I'm happy to walk you through it and discuss with you how you can make it happen. Okay. Now, I hope that answered your questions. If you have any additional questions, please do so. Okay, thank you, Wiki. Thank you for your feedback. Yeah, I think that's really a good plan. Well, yeah, I kind of agree with you. Veterinarians are specialized to identify certain things, but behavior is not what they're supposed to do. But you know what? I admire veterinarians who see something in front of them that is an animal, and we have the people who are attached to that animal who come in with their problems and they want the problem solved. But you know what? For the veterinarian, that situation is just a screenshot of the situation. What does he see? He see basically a dog health picture. There is no health story. So it depends on the owner how he transmit that story so the veterinarian can get a picture. If you show me a picture of your dog standing there and telling me how aggressive he is, it doesn't tell me anything. I need to ask questions. And if you don't answer the questions, I will not be able to help you. If you say my dog is aggressive and you cannot define what you mean with aggressive, I have to assume your dog is killing you, right? But in fact, your dog is just growling, you see? So these problems is a communication problem between veterinarians and dog guardians. But again, you're right, veterinarians are not here to be behaviorists, they have other more important things to do. Then we have the veterinarian behaviorist, who their job is to identify behaviors and connect them with medication. That's another approach. I have veterinarians that I work with where we need technical, medical support for that dog to cope with certain behaviors. Then we need to have a behaviorist who is um, knowledgeable about neurological behaviors of dogs, being able to prescribe medication, and I will be with the dog in the field and identifying the situation and can help him up with that transition. So it's a whole circle of veterinarian, behaviorist, dog trainer, and client, who all these things have to team up together. So yeah, I kind of agree with you. We need to work all together here. Good. Do you guys have any other questions so far? Good. So let's go back again while you guys comment your questions. Let's go back and watch that the survival response here, which is actually something that I teach my online clients when we discuss several behaviors. Good. So one thing I would like you to think about is that if your dog is in fight or flight mode, the next thing you want to observe is the dog's body language. How does his behavior look like? Okay. When does my dog starts changing his posture? And let's go back here. When you know how your dog feels like when he's calm and shows no signs of fear or concern. What I would do it to see that, what it looks like, just offer your dog a treat. Just make a noise to see the difference. Just take a paper bag in your hands and just make that paper noise, or a plastic bag, and then you see what your dog looks like when he starts showing interest, or he shows tensity, or he shows concerns. Okay. You will see that suddenly your dog changes, and you want to look at that change when it happens. You want to look at that change when it happens. Right when it happens, how does it look like? The first signal: ears back, tail stops wagging, the legs are changing position, the dog's body language changes. All these are information that you need to know to recognize when the dog is exactly at that threshold. So there is the under threshold and at threshold, and it's the moment where it starts. That's your goal. So you can be reactive and respond to your dog when he's at threshold, being already tense, or you can look proactively into that moment where your dog is about to change from one step to the other. Okay, and that's where you have to intervene. Now, the reason why you can intervene, but most people don't tell you, is that in order to do that, we have to identify the flirting. You see that down here, my 5 F's of survival responses: fight, flight, freeze, and then you have flirt. What is flirt? Flirt is where the dog starts flirting with the situation, tries to understand and ask the question, hey, what are you in relationship to me? Are you a threat? Are you an opportunity? Are you a game? Right? And now, in that situation, your dog will show certain signals. He will show, for example, lip licking. His lick his lips or his nose. His hackles go up. His head goes low. Ears go back. He pants, whale eyes. All that is flirting indications. So I know most of you guys see, we call them calming signals. I think the name calming signal is kind of misinterpreting, because it's a conversation going on. It's a two-way communication between the dog trying to communicate with the trigger. And so we need to capture that flirting moment and identify, hey, this is my dog needs help right now. And he shows his environment about his emotional condition. He is going into a survival mode. He is at threshold into the next situation, right? So do you guys have any questions on that? You basically able to start making the comments. And then what we want to do next is we want the dog to learn that you are there for him. And so he needs to learn to ask you a favor. For example, hey, it's something in front of me that worries me. And then you want the dog to learn to turn his head to you, telling you, hey, I need help. I need your intervention right now. And that is your proactive parenting, where that's what we kind of basically working on here in our group. Teaching your dog proactively what to do before he makes a decision to fight or flight or freeze. Before the situation becomes a trauma, you want to teach the dog what to do with it. Okay, so instead of being punishing, correcting, and making your dog more confused, teach him that, hey, looking at you in still neutral state, hey, can you help me here? And you're like, sure, let's walk away from it. Or don't worry, here's a reward. Thank you for checking with me. Let's observe it a little bit. Okay, good. So I will have a couple of questions here. Um, with people who are watching on another group. So Connie says, my 20-month-old neutral male Pyrenees golden retriever um, will growl and bark at my husband and try to lunge at him. Well, that's a serious behavior because the dog already is in a protection mode. As guardian breed, um, Pyrenees are guardian breeds. His job description is basically to guard and protect. Now, dogs who are in survival mode um, have, in your case, likely your dog has an emotional trauma that a person who enters the house with a person who is in that room in particular, and the dog has this survival relationship with a person, like without the person, the dog is in threatened, or the dog takes that job of protecting the owner or the guardian, will be a job description. That dog, in that case, the moment the door opens and the husband enters, that dog is at threshold. Basically, he goes from green into red as the door opens. So there are several steps that we need to work on, and I suggest, because it's a complex behavior and your dog is still young, we need to be very careful how to approach that. So I don't think it would be a good idea to give you now a solution, Connie. In your situation, I would like you to give me a message, message me, and we can talk about that in person, because I want to make sure that your husband is not in dangers and you're not reinforcing the dog for that behavior because of your response. Okay, so what usually happens with people who try to correct that behavior, they get stressed about the dog, and as the dog gets stressed with it, all of a sudden we reinforce the dog, because the dog feels like the reason why we are stressed is because of the person coming in the room. So basically we are in a vicious circle here, and I want to get out of there. So there's another comment somewhere. Let me check that out. Jumping on visitors. Yeah, that's my favorite. Jumping on visitors. Let me see who commented that question. I don't see that. Okay, jumping on visitors in house. Oh, this is Vicky again. I mean, Buster is just so happily wild even after 6 minute run. So you have a conditioned behavior here where your dog is not in control of his excitement. So you're dealing with lack of excitement and engagement control. So let me explain to you a little bit. Excitement is what makes the dog escalate. He goes deeper into it. The longer the time passes, the more the dog escalates in his excitement. And see excitement as, let me see if I have something for you to, no, it's okay, no worry about it. Let's see for a dog an excitement between 0 and 10. Okay, 0 is sleeping, 10 is killing. You will see your dog is beyond 5. He's basically not conscious of his excitement. All he does, he wants to stop that from happening. And because his main idea is to make contact with that trigger that is in front of him, which can have different areas. Could be a contact to make affection, could be a contact to play, could be a contact to as a prey animal, or contact to a fight response. We see the goal is to make contact. The goal is for that to stop from happening. So your dog makes that behavior. He gets excited because he wants to control the situation. So he's not in control of what's happening. So it's up to you to start teaching your dog those individual steps and start creating clear instructions and clear rules. What do I do when the door opens? What do I do when a person is visible? What do I do when my dog gets into that state of mind? So these have to be broken down in small individual pieces so the dog learns each individual piece, and you can reward them. Instead of correcting your dog and being reactive because the dog gets a threshold, you should be proactive and reward your dog that communicating with you is better, okay, than you being reactive, because reactive doesn't help because your dog is reactive, everybody's reactive, everybody reacts to the situation. And how about being proactive? How about teaching your dog that the only way to get to this person is in a calm state? Now, if you look into engagement, we see engagement is how the dog makes that contact. Does he come up and makes non-contact and still, get what he needs? Or does he have to make hard bite contact, goes into a prey drive and basically controls it with his teeth? So how high that excitement and that engagement goes depends on the dog's skills to self-control and the time that is happening and the trigger that is in front of him. So this is kind of complex. So I have actually a class coming up pretty soon. Keep you guys posted. And so you will be able to join that class. I'm just putting together the documents for that class. It will be an online class, very educational. And I can walk you through individual steps, why this is happening, how to address that. So if you want, I can share at some point the link. You will see it in the title. So you can sign up and get notified when the class is available, and you can eventually join if you want. So did this answer your question? Good. Good. Okay. So thank you guys for asking your questions. I super appreciate you guys. And yeah, how about next Saturday? We're going to have another chat with the dog trainer and behaviorist, Roman, um, and talk about stuff. You got your coffee or your tea, whatever you like. And maybe you want to think about that. If you need extra help with your dog and you don't want to wait until Saturday, you're welcome to message me. And if it is something that is, needs to be addressed immediately, we can put something together and help you out. So thank you for watching. Please share that video. I think there's a lot of good answers and good questions here. And see you next Saturday, same time.